Audio's rolling. Hello.
Hi.
What's your name?
I'm Daphne.
Hi, Daphne. How's it going?
It's going great.
Where are you from?
I'm from Ohio.
Ohio. What city or town did you grow up in?
I was born in Cleveland and then we moved to Toledo.
Toledo. Did you go to high school out there?
I did.
What was your experience like in high school?
It was not good.
Not great.
It was a pretty isolated situation, so I was really glad to graduate.
Is Toledo is it a big city? Is it a small city? Is it more of a town or?
Well, for my money, it's got a small town character to it. Although I think things are a little bit better since the, widespread use of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got a small town feel to it, and I don't mean that in a good way.
Mm. How long have you been in the Bay Area?
Oh, about 20 years.
20 years. So Bay Area is home for you.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did you go to college?
I did.
What did you study?
History?
History? Did you have a certain focus, like American history?
Modern Europe. Which
Oh,
I
cool.
think it was 1500 to present, I think is how they classified it.
What was a topic in there or a country or something that you felt like was like super interesting to you?
Well, I always liked, even from high school, I always liked, the French Revolution. That was always a favorite period.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also like learning about the English kings and, just the dynasties. It's still fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have 3 brothers.
3 brothers. Do you guys have a good relationship?
We did, and now we don't.
Oh. What's your earliest childhood memory?
I think my mom says I was around 2 or not yet 2, but I think it was the first and last time I was spanked, and I had eaten some ashes. But at that time my father smoked, or maybe smoked cigars, or he smoked cigarettes. And, I just remember thinking, grown-ups must be really stupid because after tasting ashes, why in the world would I ever eat them again? Mm-hmm. But I understand that the concern was that if they were hot, then I would, really hurt myself. But that was what went through my mind at the time.
Do you have any children?
I don't.
What TV shows did you like when you were a kid?
I loved Bewitched, and I was telling an old boyfriend that I really took her as a role model because she was super talented with, all of her powers. She was also very smart, very pretty, but she never used any of those talents for ill. And she never, put people down because they weren't as talented or as quick. And she was always kind and always gracious. And she only used her powers if she used them, she would use them to protect her family or to, do something that, mostly in favor of her family, of her husband, her children. So I guess I'm saying, she wasn't malicious, and I guess I just felt like that's the way to be. I never was interested in being mean-spirited toward people because they weren't as clever or they, or whatever it was. And I always felt like if you have more talent or in whatever area it may be, then, you should try to help people out, or, you know, at least be nice to them. But going through life and seeing so many mean-spirited people and looking for a way to just feel superior to someone else, and that's always been something that I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm. What do you do for work?
I'm a writer.
Do you do like fiction or like essays?
Oh no, I write for newspapers and sometimes websites.
Oh, cool. What's your topic?
Right now I write regularly about design, home design, and a little bit about real estate as well.
What's something that you've seen or written about that maybe kind of like blew your mind, or was like kind of interesting or different, or maybe like something that you didn't know before?
Well, I'll just say that I recently did a story about how to make a space look larger, which is a typical service piece, but it was so exciting. I had to, obviously find designers to interview for quotes, and it was so exciting to find this young woman in Berkeley, and I think she considers it part of her brand to be bold and brash, but she's so gifted, just to be able to see her work and the images that she sent along. I tried to publish as many of them as I could. It's just always exciting, to see someone talented and young who's not afraid and is actually pursuing, their passion. It's just such a great feeling to witness that.
Mm-hmm. She's so is she like an interior
designer? Yeah. She has her own firm, and I think it's all women, if I'm not mistaken. And she's just very sort of unafraid, and I think it's exciting for me too, because when I was that age, I was very, very meek and not very bold. I only learned to be bold later on. So.
Mm-hmm. How did you learn to be bold?
Well, I think over time, I guess I just kind of realized that, well, I guess it was gradual, and it was a process, but in fact, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, I'm the youngest in my family, and so the family mythology was always that I was scared to death of everything. And it's true that I was definitely shy, and I was a kind of on the the meek side, but the other truth is that I always was, if I became interested in something, I never waited around to see if my friends wanted to do it too or something. I would just go after it. So, whether it was horseback riding or ice skating or ballet, or if I became interested, I'd read everything I could about it, and then I'd pester my parents for lessons, mm-hmm. and then I would, go and do it. So, when you kind of look at the facts, I was never, I definitely exhibited some boldness early on.
What were you into in high school? Did you play sports? Were you into art or books or?
Well, I was always artsy. I started piano at age 5, so and I was lucky to have a really good teacher in Cleveland, and so she had me all figured out, because as I said, I was, I guess, a bit of a scaredy cat. So she would teach me things in such a way, in just sort of an offhand way, so I didn't know how difficult they actually were. And so it brought me along, really quickly. But then we moved when I was 10, and I never did find, anyone of that caliber. So, but I knew by then that I didn't want to be a pianist, because my teacher told me it would be, I think she said 6 to 8 hours a day of practicing, mm-hmm. and I just felt like that's not what I wanted for my life. So, when we couldn't find anyone, it was kind of too bad, but it wasn't like I was driven to, be the best pianist ever, so then we drove to Detroit or something, what I mean? I knew I didn't want to do that for a living, so, that's how that went. And then I took up ballet just before we moved. I think at 9, because as I said, I was reading the books and everything. So then at the school called the Music School Settlement, where I was studying piano, they also offered some ballet lessons. It wasn't, it was just like, I think beginner and a beginner intermediate, and it was just one teacher, and that was just sort of like a 1 hour class. It wasn't like a great big studio or anything. But before I left, my teacher did say if I'm really interested, then I should try to find a good school and, a good teacher. So all through high school, since my piano was kind of, I didn't have a great relationship with my piano teacher, and that's, of course, at that age, you don't know that you have to mesh with people and you have to, shop around. And it was, as I said, kind of a smallish town. So this was the woman with the best reputation. So that's who we went with. So I kind of shifted my energies over to ballet because the ballet program was really strong. And they had nutcrackers every year, and I was always excited to do those, and as well as a small company that performed other ballets, in the spring, pretty much. So I kind of shifted my energies, and then also, schools have school musicals, and so I think I did 3 of those. I'm pretty sure. As the singing, dancing chorus, and I always enjoyed that. So I did. As I said, I'll try anything once. So that's the kind of boldness I guess I have. So I did go ahead and go out for field hockey. I don't remember if it was sophomore or junior year, just to try it. And, I was really shocked to find, during the games. I mean, I was a junior varsity, and I wasn't athletic, so I wasn't like the best person on the team or something. But we'd go to games, and the same girls that were like fawning all over my brothers in class were using racial slurs on the the playing field. And I couldn't get my head around it. I didn't know what that meant or how that could be. So that was pretty confusing. But again, I'm not much of a jock, so I dropped out of that after a semester. But that definitely wasn't an attractive part of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe the people in my ballet class used those words when I wasn't around or something, but I just didn't really feel like that was a really very, quality environment for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
What was the first job you ever had?
Oh, well, other than babysitting, I was recruited to work for IBM. They had this summer program at the time, and so they were looking for people. And I think I had good, college test scores, that kind of thing. So, so I worked there the year before my freshman year and the year after. So that was I think they called it a marketing and technical internship. And I guess, looking back, I already knew then that I wasn't really corporate oriented. My mom pushed me to try to get back in for the 3rd year, but I think the guy had already asked me. I guess it showed, because the guy who ran the program had already asked me, "Do you really want to come back next year?" And I said no. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of interesting that after that, it took me years and years to really kind of realize that, the corporate way didn't really go with my personality, and I should just, find some other way to work.
How would you describe that? Like, what is the corporate way? Like, what was the atmosphere like, or what was it that you feel like didn't mesh with your personality?
Well, I think the conformity, I think that's huge. I ended up, I guess my last corporate job was at a large software firm in the South Bay. And, I would go in and, you walk into the elevator, and I was shocked that they were all dressed the same. And they were excited to be dressed the same. Mm-hmm. And that was what I did. I would be like, well, why would you want to look like everybody else? I would sometimes go to work, and I wouldn't wear high fashion, but just things that were interesting, like, pale pink jeans with, And it's not like I'm a total fashion diva, but just, I like to express my personality, through my clothing. And that I can't say was officially frowned on, but I just, it was just like, no, everybody should be wearing clogs with chinos and whatever. I don't know if it were polo shirts or whatever, but they were just thrilled and excited to be all the same. And then the other thing was that I'm very task oriented. I think this is a really boring interview because it sounded so internally focused. But anyway, I'm so task oriented that when I go to work, I actually like to work. So I don't go to work to go to lunch or gossip or, chat at the water cooler. I like to actually do the job. And I discovered that I, have a much better chance of doing that, as an independent contractor.
I feel like I noticed that exact same thing too whenever I've worked in offices. It seems like there's kind of like people don't need to be there that long, like sometimes it kind of feels that way. And like a lot of that time is almost just like a lot of like interaction stuff that is not related to like what you're actually getting paid to do.
Yeah.
What would you say was your favorite job?
Oh, let's see. Favorite corporate job or favorite job?
Any job.
Any job. Does that include acting?
Absolutely.
Oh. Well, I have to speak in very general terms because, as you know, these days, people in the industry are very concerned about storylines leaking and that kind of thing. So let me say that I was on a show and let's see. It's I'm trying to think how to not say too much. It's a extremely a popular show, and so I was just really thrilled to be able to be. I mean, I was thrilled when I got there. I didn't really realize I had heard about the show, but I didn't know much about it. So I had to watch the episodes, after I was hired. And then but once I got there, I was just so thrilled because everything was just everything was just it's just the very, very best. So it's kind of like some people are excited they go to a country club or something and everyone's walking around with champagne and they're like, oh, it's the best of everything. I love it. And it was like that, except in terms of the work, in terms of the set design, the set decoration, the directing, the produce, everything, the writing. And then it was wonderful because I actually worked 2 days. And on the second day, it was like an afternoon of free theater because I was able to see, I guess 3 or 4 of the actors working and how they would work through the scenes and how they would, the choices they would make from one take to the next. And it was just so thrilling, for that to be my first experience on a program that's in wide release. I've done smaller things, in short films and commercials and things like that. But to, I actually always was thinking, well, my first, I'll be lucky to get a Lifetime movie. I just, I'll do anything. I just want to get that first job, But this one, I mean, to start at that level is just kind of amazing. And I have total respect for everyone from the, even the people who build the sets, just everyone, sound people. It was just an amazing experience just to sit there and watch everyone at that, such excellence on every level. It was just so inspiring.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What are some of the commercials like that you've done?
Well, let's see. I quite a few years back, I did a couple of spots, and one ended up on MSNBC, like just relentlessly. Every time you turn your head, it was on. And then there was another one too it didn't run as long, but it was just me with one other guy, and it was for like a dating website type of thing. And then I've done others, but the most recent one was really kind of the downside of being in a smaller market like this. This company didn't really tell us who the client was till we got there, which I realize now was a bit of a goof. So we had fun, at the shoot and everything. But then what they did was just take scenes and splice them together and keep recutting, this commercial through the years. So I ended up in 3 commercials that were running in pretty heavy rotation.
From that one shoot?
Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah. No,
so then you kind of like they got like 3 for 1 sort of thing?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a union,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, I don't know. Anyway, I think that's the last broadcast commercial, that I did. I do a lot of corporate videos and a lot of web commercials and stuff like that. A lot of print.
Do you ever think about moving to Los Angeles?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to live there, or do you feel like it's not as... do you prefer the Bay Area to Los Angeles?
Well, I think the climate here is probably a little bit... I mean, I know it's just so dry there that, sometimes it's just so dry. So I think that would be one thing that would be difficult about it. But, there are obvious attractions as well.
Mm-hmm. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Oh, I like to witness a good performance. Some people love to travel because they want to see all the different, the different places and the colors and the vegetation and the people and the culture of the food. And I don't say that I don't like to travel, but I feel like I get some of that just from seeing a good performance, because I feel like I'm, I feel, if it's good, the person must be talented, and maybe they're trained, maybe they're not, maybe they just, are amazing. But I just feel like I get so much out of it spiritually, I think. Whether it's acting or whether it's music or, opera or ballet, it's a thrill for me to witness somebody who's truly gifted, highly accomplished, and playing the heck out of a role.
What's an example of a role that you've seen where you feel like it was really exciting for you?
Let's see. Well, I always liked Law and Order because, obviously there are 20 years of shows, but, it's almost because they were so selective about casting and directing and lighting and everything that it's almost like the show that I'm talking about. You just feel like you're just sort of getting the cream of the crop. And then, to be able to go from the person who's just like a witness and has 2 or 3 lines, to the featured actors for that week or something, and they're all excellent. It just does a lot for me. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of other... Well, I know one time this was a radio thing, and that's how, that's unusual, but there's this show that broadcasts talented teens, on public radio. Mm-hmm. And I heard a young man, a young trumpeter, doing the, and there was just so much joy, in his tone. And he's very, very accomplished too. It's not like it was joyful, but technically it was sloppy or something. It wasn't like that at all. It was really, really, really fine work, also undergirded by this, major joy. And that's something that I really remember. It really made an impression. Mm-hmm. I think I actually contacted him at one point. And then there was a little boy playing on the street one time, same thing. It was also the trumpet, and he was maybe 10 and was playing to get money to pay for his lessons. And same thing, just an extreme gift, extreme joy. It's just beautiful.
Do you like movies?
I do. I don't go to as many because I usually don't have the time, but sometimes I'll watch on Netflix or on television.
Have you seen something recently that you feel like was really good?
Um, as a movie, um, well, the last movie I saw was, I think, in the theater was, and maybe that's why I never went back. The one with, and I love this actress. I've been a fan of hers for a long time, and this was her breakout role. Oh shoot, it's the one with. It was a very popular book, and then they turned it into a movie. It's about this woman who tries to get revenge on her husband for moving her away from New York City. Does that sound familiar? No. Okay. Anyway, it just seemed really. I was really surprised that it was so popular because it just seemed so. I just felt like there's so many other ways to go. You know, if you didn't want to move to New York, you could, you know, they didn't have children, so you could have divorced him or, I don't know, found something to do in your, you know, but, you know, she just went through all of this negative stuff, and some of it even ended up, I mean, some of it had to do with murdering a man. And I was just amazed that people were so fond of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little too negative for me.
What would you say you're most proud of?
I think the actings. I think, as I said, I grew up very shy and was always involved in arts that didn't involve my speaking. So, you know, it all started really with. It's a long story, but I was in Chicago. I was living in Chicago, and at that time, the Oprah Winfrey show was produced in Chicago, and they were looking for people for this episode. So I called and I got on, and that was how. After that, I, you know, moved back to Boston and I started auditioning for plays, and that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And then after I guess for about a year, I did some plays, and then I thought I'd move out here to try to study at ACT in their evening classes. And I took a few classes, but I didn't feel like they were better than the teachers I'd had in Boston. So I kind of stopped that. But I also wanted to see if I could ever work as a commercial actor, because in Boston, I went to an audition, and like I said, the advertising people weren't very nice. They were literally just laughing in front of my face, I guess because I was very self-conscious or awkward or something. So when I first came out here, I just wanted to prove I could get work, you know, as a commercial actor. And I think I worked for like 2 or 3 years or something. And then I got bored, because that was the only reason but then after I was laid off from that large corporation, about a year later, I started acting again. And then it's kind of just grown from there. It was the kind of thing where you're like, I can't believe I got this part, you know, I kept saying that. And then eventually I was like, wait a minute, I have to believe it. I keep getting these parts. And so then I started thinking, well, maybe I could really do something with it, you know. And so I found this agency, and at first I didn't know what I was going to get into. They said they were looking for people to promote, and you never know what that could be completely, you know. But so the first year they sent me to, they sent me a lot of auditions for reenactment shows, like, you know. And then the next year it was a lot of kiddie stuff, you know, Disney and Nickelodeon. But then last year, they came through with some auditions from this major casting director. And then this year, it's just been like, it's almost like living there. I mean, you know, there are people who live there that don't get as many auditions as I've been getting this year. And it's just kind of, you know, the television and the new media stuff, but also my first movie audition was this year and it was not like, you know, it's not like the kind of thing that could just easily be cut out. It was like a major scene in a movie with a legendary actor, and this was the scene that set the action in motion. And you know, I was able to do the audition from here, you know, and send it in, and I was thrilled with that. And then I kept getting the little, you know, the TV series stuff, and then I got an audition with this, you know, legendary casting director, and that was for a small, tiny role, but it was like a huge Christmas blockbuster type of, you know, movie. with a major studio, and so it's kind of all kind of been really quick, within the last couple of years. But it's a really good feeling to feel like, you. I go to auditions and things with a lot of people who are. Oh, is something wrong?
No, keep going.
Okay, who are just kind of happy to be on camera for that day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a friend I used to have, and I used to complain to him, no one's going to see these corporate videos. This is so frustrating. Nobody's ever going to see this stuff. Should
Yeah, you can I guess just like you can silence it.
I? Okay. Sorry, my phone hardly ever rings. By the time I get to it, it probably will be silent. What are you doing? Oh, okay, great. So okay. So it's kind of been kind of a lonely pursuit because most of the people don't. I think many people are fully convinced that the corporate video is the best that they can do or will do, and maybe that's true. I don't know, but I just know that it was never enough. For me, after a while, I just felt so frustrated about it. So it's nice to feel it's nice to feel that hi. Oh yeah, after working so hard, like a lot of the people that I see around, don't even bother to put together a reel, of any kind. So, but after working so hard to develop those and try to make them better each year and that kind of thing, and to all the marketing materials, and to just obviously try to improve your skills as much as you can. It's exciting to see this kind of progress, and so that's why I'm really proud of that. It's a very, very long-winded answer.
Can you talk about the movie with the actor, or are you not allowed to talk about it?
Well, I feel kind of tacky because I didn't get the part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel, how you'll watch a talk show and somebody will say, "Oh, I was up for that part." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're like, "But you didn't get it." So, you just sound really graceless right now,
Yeah.
So I guess that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, oh, or one of the people that's trying to coattail, "Oh, I just auditioned for something with so-and-so," and it's like, well, that's great, but you didn't get it, So I would rather not do that.
Let's see. So the corporate videos, so they seem like they're not as fulfilling.
Yeah.
But are they fun?
Well, they can be. They're, sometimes they're, people will come up with some comedy or, some interesting script. I did one thing where I was in a house in South San Francisco, and the whole thing was about a drone. So I was supposed to be like the grandmother, and I was, and that was just really a lot of fun because it actually went through quite a few emotions, and there were a lot of different angles, and
He'll be fine. He does that from time to time.
So sometimes it can be fun. And there was one thing I did was almost like doing a musical. They had us all lined up, and we were kind of behind. They hired the main guy from Los Angeles. We were behind him, kind of almost dancing up toward the camera. So it can be fun. I think lately there hasn't been as much of that, but it's sometimes really straightforward and
Sorry.
so that's okay. yeah, things are a little more straightforward and sometimes just downright silly. I just did one that was almost not worth doing. So, they were on the gamut.
Were you raised religious?
Well, we went to church every week. That was really important to my mother. Um, yeah. I mean, I think compared with things you hear about or of, I don't know, their parents talking about the Bible all day, it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But just we went to church every week.
Do you still believe in it?
I was always, I always had my questions about what we were taught. I believe in a higher power, that I call God, but someone else might call something else. And I just believe that, all beings have value and that we're all connected in some way.
What do you think happens to us after we die?
Well, I watched a bunch of shows on some channel. I think it might have been the Oprah channel. And, there's so many people who say that they, when they have these near-death experiences, they see their family and everybody looks young and happy and carefree and everything. And so, I'm feeling there must be some place that you go. Yeah, I guess that's just how I feel about it because I've just heard so many. I mean, different walks of life and different backgrounds and different religious beliefs, and they all have that same experience. So,
are you familiar with the 7 deadly sins?
well, I think I was at one time.
So there's greed,
Sloth,
envy,
right?
Lust, gluttony, pride, wrath, and sloth.
Okay.
Which do you think is the most damaging to society?
Can you read them again? Sorry.
Greed, envy, gluttony, sloth, lust, pride, and wrath.
I would say pride, and I guess I would say pride because because there's so many people that are dominated by ego, and they make decisions and take actions based on nothing but that, and they manage to move through their entire life that way. And I think it can lead to just so many, it can lead to murder, and it can lead to a lot of, this sexual abuse that we're hearing about and inappropriate behavior that we hear about. It's just about the love of power, and love of power comes from letting your ego rule your entire, your behavior. And so I think that would be the one that I would single out. I mean, to think that people will kill someone because they were rejected in a relationship or something. I mean, there's nothing but ego, and it's just hard to imagine.
Mm-hmm. Were you raised with a certain political outlook?
Yeah, my parents are from the segregated South, and they met in a college chemistry class. Mm-hmm. So they were obviously pro civil rights, and so they were certainly strong, proud Democrats. And we lived in a very racially isolated situation, and I'm surrounded by mostly Republicans. So yeah, I was brought up with a certain bent.
Do you feel like that has influenced your worldview now?
Well, I'm glad that, I mean, I think some of the things that I was taught gave me a good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, I tend to question things. So, certainly come up with my own views, my own attitudes. I'm certainly a lot more open toward, different different inclinations
Mm-hmm.
than my parents would have been. I'm just not the sort of person to just sweep along with whatever, whatever the prevailing view is.
Do you feel like the world is in a generally good place or a generally bad place?
Oh, well, I, I just wrote this Facebook post where I was telling people, and I didn't even realize that the thing with Harvey Weinstein had just come out. And I was just telling people, because I kept running into these really gifted, talented people who are producing television or movies or writing or both. And so I was just telling them, don't believe the hype. There are really a lot of nerds, in Hollywood, and it's not all about people behaving badly. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Do you feel like the world is in a generally good place or a generally bad place?
Right. So then so I don't know whether I'm just, I tend to have, I've somehow avoided a lot of the negative experiences and stuff. But I have to say, and I'm sure this is going to sound very shallow to you or something, but when I heard about, considering my background in terms of race, when I heard about the new Duchess to be in England,
Mm-hmm.
that just seemed to me to show that the world's moving in the right direction. Because however you can deny it if you want to, but the English royal family is the pinnacle, of society, and not just English society, but really of American society as well. People would kill, to have anything to do with that family. And Europe as well, since most of the other European royal families are not as well known or highly publicized, at least not, on this side of the Atlantic. So it's really the pinnacle, and I just, and I love the way that Meghan Markle did not set out to, get into the royal family, but she was just a person pursuing her passions. She was acting, she was pursuing her charity work, she was meeting friends and living the life that she wanted. And then they had this blind date, and then she found the man of her dreams. And so I'm just delighted with the whole thing. And as I said, I'm sure that there are many people who are shocked and horrified on both sides of the Atlantic, but that's the kind of thing that makes me feel the world. We've got a situation in this country that I probably should not to say too much about, but when you hear not only that she's marrying into the family, but also that she's doing it for the right reasons, not because she's a social climber, but just because she fell in love. So yeah, I have to say, I think, and also, the other thing is, as you said, I'm a really big ballet fan, and there are a lot of, around the world right now, there are a lot of Black and mixed race dancers that are doing quality work and getting promoted, and most people don't know about them, but they're out there. And so for me, with my strong interest, from a young age, that's a major positive thing too.
Were there dancers that you looked up to when you were younger?
Yeah. My favorite was named Melissa Hayden, and she was from Canada. And when I was a little girl, I would just check out every book in the library, whatever topic it was. So she was in all the books, and there'd be little biographical sketches with some obviously photos, of the dancer. Excuse me. So I had a lot of, read about a lot of people, many times over, but I especially liked her because she started late. She started at age 12, and she's from Canada, which is just kind of interesting. But she danced with the New York City Ballet, and so I was just a huge fan, and even my mom remembers me jumping around, telling her about Melissa Hayden. So then when I think I was 14, possibly 15, my ballet teacher comes in and says, "Oh, we're going to have someone come and teach a master class. It's Melissa Hayden." And I was just like, what?
Oh, wow.
So, and then, it was funny because my classmates didn't know who she was. It's that kind of thing where you're like, wow. But
How old were you when she
I
came?
was 14 or 15. I definitely was not 16. So
That's a really crazy coincidence. So what was that like?
well, that's the thing. It's the kind of thing like for me, how the little kids, they want to meet. Well, now it's the guy from the Warriors, Stephen Curry. Mm-hmm. But before it was Michael Jordan, and for me it was like that. It was this huge giant coming out of the sky, and she was going to come and teach us. And so I'm like, that's definitely a strong memory. I was the first person in the door. It was wintertime in Ohio, so I'd take my boots off and everything. And I turned around, and there she was. And she smiled at me. And I literally looked around behind me. I was like, I knew no one else was there. But I was like, how could this great woman be, acknowledging me at all? And, we went to the class, and she gave me a lot of suggestions. In a ballet class, it's considered a compliment if the teacher gives you corrections, because it means they see where you can improve. So I was like, I can't believe this is happening. She's just standing over here talking to me. I was just like blowing my mind.
So if they don't give you, sorry to interrupt. So if they don't give you corrections, then it's kind of like they're not interested, or?
Yeah, kind of. It's because I remember, because I used to read the books and everything. So I was like, I would never get freaked out if someone would correct me. But that's sort of the idea. If they kind of blow past you, it's kind of like you're not worth the effort. I'm not, kind of being extra harsh, but it's kind of like that. So the fact that someone would come from New York and, stop and talk to me and, help me with my technique, that's a huge thing for me. And so yeah, that was major. And then she just taught that class. And then the next spring, I guess I was 14, because then the next year, the teacher said, oh, she's going to come and stage part of a ballet. That's why she came to teach the class, to assess, love, to see if there are people who could actually perform, this choreography. And so the same thing happened. She came back, and she remembered me, and I remember that one time.
Would you kind of just nudge him a little with your heel? Maybe
okay.
Just kind of nudge him a little.
I was wondering what I could do. Okay.
Yeah.
You're a character, man. And so she was, we had like a straight week of rehearsals. So it was a really big deal for us, because that's not usually how it was. Usually it would be like 3 or 4 days in a week. But because she was just there for the week. So it was really hard work, and I think we went to a much larger space than we usually worked in. And so she, would work with us and stuff. And then between...
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. And then during rehearsal breaks... Is he confused, or he just...
I think he's a little... I think he doesn't hear that well anymore, too. So you're okay, buddy. Yeah,
So when I drink water, are you gonna cut that out? Because I don't want to.
I can.
Oh,
Sure.
okay. Excuse me. Sorry.
I'm gonna get him a little snack. Okay.
Oh, is that it? Oh. And so, what are we talking about? Oh, right. That we would have the rehearsal. So, yeah, very intensive work. And then she would talk to me during the rehearsal breaks. So it was just the two of us walking down the hall. And I remember one time especially just being like, I can't believe this is happening. This is a great artist. And it's just me. It's not like there's three people clustering around her or something. And, you know, she's just talking to me just like I'm a person like she is. You know what I mean? It was a huge, it just made me feel like I must have something. You know, like I said, I was in the high school and I was all isolated, but I felt like I must have something to offer. You know, if this lady is singling me out and, you know, talking to me and she, you know, then another couple of famous dancers from the same company came to do the performance with us. And they were really nice too. And so I just remember, you know, that just made a huge impression on me. And after that, I really believed anything was possible in my life.
Did you participate in the performance?
Oh, yes.
And then what was the performance like?
It was, there's a ballet by George Balanchine called Stars and Stripes. And so I think we did I don't know, I think there are 3 sections to it, and we did the 3rd section. I think that's what it was. And I think I was in the Blue Regiment, but I can't remember. I remember the choreography for a long, long time. Because it really meant a lot to me.
Did you keep in touch with her at all?
Well, these are great questions. I went, when I was in school, I went down, I mean, by that time she had started a school right around, right near Times Square in New York. And so I went down one weekend and took class, and she said she remembered me. I don't know if she really did, but, you know, of course, was just happy to be there. And, you know, to be in New York taking a ballet class. And that was really exciting.
Yeah, really
for
cool.
me too.
Let's see. What's something that you would like to see or do before you die?
Oh, well, let's see. One thing I'd like to do is spend some time in the English countryside, because I watch a lot of English programming, and it just seems so idyllic. And it's just hard as an American for me to believe that there's so much land that's undeveloped there. And it just seems really peaceful and serene and, you know, basically safe. You know, not like, it's not as if you go to a wild area and be in fear of your life. You know, it seems like you can actually roam the countryside and without feeling unsafe. So,
what's one of the best cities that you've lived in? I guess what are one of the cities that you think of very fondly that you've lived in your life?
well, I really like New York, but I've never lived there. So I guess that would be Paris, because I lived there for, it was just, I guess, 4 or 5 months. But I think, um, I don't know, the quality of the light. I was there in the spring for semester, while I was in college. And, excuse me, it's really lucky to stay in a really beautiful apartment with, wonderful parquet flooring and all that stuff, and French windows opening onto the onto the small balcony. But just it rained a lot, so there was kind of a certain gray, but that's not depressing. There's just something, and I guess that's something that kind of really stayed with me. And then another thing that I remember was that I had no, not a close friend, but someone who was also at the same school, and she lived on the Place des Vosges, which is where, okay. And so while it would be raining everywhere else, you'd go over to the Place des Vosges and there was just this little square of blue sky, and it happened more than once. And I never really looked into whether there was lore around it or anything like that, but that's something that really stayed with me too.
So it would rain, but
the
then
sun always shines on the Place des Vosges. It was always, it was just, and I was like, how could this be? I've never seen anything like that before or since.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What about in the United States? What's a city that you feel really fondly for? Like you said, you've lived in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
It seems like you've lived in a lot of different places.
Well, Chicago. Well, can I talk about New York, even though I've been out?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay. I miss New York like a person. There's something about it that I guess it gets inside you, and that's a lot to say because I haven't lived there. I've only visited there, but that's the way I feel about it. And there's also a certain quality to the light there, and then there are just so many things but one thing that I love is that when I'm there, I can walk and walk and walk forever without getting tired. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's because the streets are wide or there's just so much going on that it's interesting. I really don't know.
It's so stimulating.
Right. But I can, and I do love walking. Mm-hmm. So that means a lot.
Do you live in a walkable part of the Bay Area?
Not really. I kind of usually get in my car and go someplace to walk.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite part of the Bay Area?
Well, I like the area around the Opera House and City Hall. I like the architecture, and I like the Point Reyes.
Mm-hmm. I haven't been there yet.
Oh, yeah. It's hard, with that, single lane traffic. But if you go when there's not traffic, then, but it's just kind of, it's not warm, but it's just really, really relaxing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Final question that I like to ask people is, what would you like to tell future Americans?
Oh, well, I think I kind of based on that Meghan Markle story, I think that you should, it's so trite to say be yourself and find and do what you love, but in fact, I find that's really the best path. And, you don't want to come to the end of your life and be saying, be wondering or second guessing yourself or wondering what would have happened if you'd had the courage to follow, your dreams. It's not a good place to be in. So I think, take advantage of every freedom that we have. Choose your friends, learn what you want, go where you want, do as you please, as long as you're within the law and not intentionally hurting anybody. And it will be, it might not be, it might not be nirvana, but I guess it's the only authentic, or the way that seems to me to be, the authentic way through life. And I also think to participate. I mean, we're learning now. I think a lot of Americans are discovering how important it is to take part in the political process, whether it's just voting or marching or, following social media campaigns or whatever, but to participate and make your voice heard, because that's, as Americans, that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're intended to do. And, when a lot of the upheaval came about a year ago, and some commentators were saying, we shouldn't be all just up in arms like this. This is too much upheaval. But I remember reading a long time ago, someone said democracy is messy. And it's, and it does mean fussing, fighting, and tangling, with people sometimes. And, and so, people called, America, and the country is still pretty young. And so that's why we're just learning these lessons. We're just learning these lessons now, I guess. But, because other countries have regarded us as complacent, for a long time. And now we're learning to stand out and speak. And I think that is also moving in the right direction. And I think that is also a beautiful thing. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Oh my God, you must be like, oh, this person's so heavy.
No, not at all. Yeah, this was really great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So you're not going to use all of that, right? I mean, I'm going on forever about stuff.